All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Little. I'm the mayor for the District of North Vancouver, so the pleasure falls to me to welcome you all here to the fifth evening of the public hearing for 1200 block of East Keith Road. I'm going to read a script back into the record. We read this at the beginning of each of the times. This is a quasi-judicial setting, and so there are rules set down by the provincial government for how we must conduct these meetings. And so I'm going to go over the rules to lead us into the meeting here tonight. This public hearing is being reconvened pursuant to Section 464 of the Local Government Act and is being held in a hybrid meeting format, meaning there is a combination of in-person and electronic participation by some or all members of the council, staff, and the public. The chair has established the following rules for this hearing. We will continue with the established speakers list. At the end of the speakers list, the chair may call for any other speakers not on the speakers list. You will have 5 minutes to address council. Begin your remarks to the council by stating your name. After speakers have spoken once, they will then be allowed one additional 5-minute opportunity. Any additional presentations will only be at the discretion of the chair. Please do not repeat information from your previous presentations and ensure your comments remain focused on the bylaw under consideration this evening. If you have provided a written submission, there's no need to read it as it will have already been seen by the council. You may summarize or briefly reiterate the highlights of your submission, but ensure your comments pertain to the bylaw under consideration at this hearing. All members of the audience are asked to be respectful of one another as diverse opinions are expressed. Council wishes to hear everyone's views in an open and impartial forum. Some important notes about public hearings. Council is here to listen to the public, not to debate the merits of the bylaw. Council may ask clarifying questions. The clerk has a binder containing documents and submissions related to the bylaw, which council has received and which you are welcome to review. This is available on the table next to the door and online at dnv.org/agenda. Everyone at the hearing will be provided an opportunity to speak. If necessary, we will continue the hearing onto a sixth night. At the conclusion of the public input, council may request further information from staff, which may or may not require an extension of the hearing, or council may close the hearing, after which council should not receive further new information from the public. Finally, please note that this hearing is being held via Zoom and recorded in accordance with the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Just before I get into the public speakers, I will just say, we are at the fifth night of this hearing. What that means is we've actually had 100 different speakers who have presented so far, and about 169 representations in total, with people speaking a second time or a third time. What we really want people to focus on for the remainder of the time in the hearing is if you've heard views that have not been expressed before, if you have not spoken before, but if you're hearing someone else saying what you've already been saying, then maybe that's not the best use of the remaining time. But also, a lot of time in the fourth night was used to rebut other people's presentations. That's actually not supported in our regulations. And so I'm going to be a little bit more hard-nosed about that as we go into the fifth night here, that someone may have cast aspersions that your view is because you're NIMBY. Well, don't spend your 5 minutes talking about NIMBYism. Someone may have suggested that you don't live in the neighborhood, therefore you shouldn't have a voice. Everyone's voice is welcome. Don't waste your time commenting on whether somebody's valid or not in this space. Everybody's welcome. And so what I'd really like to see is any opinions that haven't been expressed before. First-time speakers, absolutely welcome to come in and share your views. But I'm going to be a little more hard-nosed on the second and third-time speakers to stay on target and make sure their comments are refined to the bylaw under consideration this evening. One thing that I said at the previous meetings, which I'll just restate, again, that last piece that I talked about there about that the whole purpose of the meeting is for everybody to feel welcome to share their opinions. And one of the ways we do that is by making sure there's no cheering or jeering. Just let people come up, say what they want to say, and let them sit back down. We want them treated with the same respect that you would want to be treated with. And you may not see it that way. You may think cheering is just positive and it's adding to the commentary or applause. The reality is it's very intimidating for other people to share their views when they're worried that someone's going to shout over them or cheer over them and stuff. So we work very hard to maintain an environment where people are welcome to share their views, and that continues tonight. So at this point, where we're at is, like I said, we're on to the fifth night. We have 16 speakers that have signed up to speak through this meeting. Some are first, second, and third time speakers, and we'll work through that list. When we get to the end of that list, if I've missed anyone, let's say someone signed up but they're not here yet, I'll just do a quick double check back to make sure those people have an opportunity to speak. And after that, we're going to go look for additional hands in the audience or virtually or through the phone system to make sure that people have an opportunity to speak. But I'm going to start going through the list of the 16 speakers who signed up ahead of time to speak. But don't worry, if you're not on the list, we'll still come back to the room before we exhaust the public speakers list. So the first speaker that I have is Steve Mitchell, followed by Hazen Colbert. Steve Mitchell joining us here in the council chambers. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing. Just to be clear, I believe this is your third time speaking, is that correct?
Yeah, so I'll make it quick. I was hoping to actually get the spot. A lot of people find it hard. Or is that Mike tracking me? There we go.
It is now.
Oh,
there you go.
Okay. So yeah, as you've heard from me a few times, I mean, I've tried to keep an open mind to this. I continue to do some research, which, you know, I will leave in the box there. I would, you know, just I guess a few points I wanted to make on the last time I was here is again expressing my still concern and opposition to the location in a single family home neighborhood, property, parks, and playgrounds, not perhaps a great fit for a facility of this nature. I think it's been fairly clear that the majority of most neighbors do still oppose this. It's a high transportation hub. Obviously, it's been talked about before, Highway 1, Mountain Highway, Keith, all that. But as I'm reading more of the development plan moving into the future of North Van, which I'm very excited about, by the way, is newly installed walking and biking pathways, future projects to pass through this area and need to remain safe with access to open parklands and the river. I guess one other piece of research, which I still have written down, that it was under the goal of the whether it be the North Shore District or City for 72 beds for North Van, and with 65 of those being in one space, where you know, I share my street with 2 halfway houses already, a block from both sides of me. You know, I feel like we've certainly given, you know, taken our fair share of what we would call supportive housing, and I still would support affordable housing and help to families in our neighborhood. I think we do need that. I think it's a lot to ask of the neighbors for a facility this size, and otherwise I'll say that I'm done. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Steve, you raised a good point there. So that black tray on the desk, if anybody has a printed speech or printed materials they want submitted, if you put it in that black tray that's on the desk, the clerks will scan it and share it with the council. So thank you again for that. Next speaker I have is Hazen Colbert joining us virtually, followed by Radha Jain. Is Mr. Colbert on the call?
I'm here, Mayor Little.
Yes. Welcome. I can hear you clearly. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
And thank you. Of course, I'm always okay with you using the name Hazen Colbert, but for the purposes of inclusivity in this country, the pronunciation of my last name should include both the English and French, as we are the 2 founding cultures of Canada. And so Hazen Colbert or Hazen Colbert is perfectly fine. Mayor Little and Council, I would like to direct you to page 3 of the staff presentation tonight, which is, it's page 3 of the staff presentation, but it's also page 13 of the 13 of the submissions that you're receiving, not the public input, but the submission from staff. And I looked through this, and on page 3, there are some goals that are presented out of the official community plan, which allegedly this project supports. And I'm going to read them. Goal 2, encourage and enable a diverse mix of housing types and tenure and affordability to accommodate the lifestyles and needs of people at all stages of life. I am hesitant to believe that being a drug addict is a credible lifestyle. I'm going to go on. Goal 3, foster a safe, socially inclusive, and supportive community that enhances the health and well-being of all residents. I am hesitant to believe that being a drug addict, having mental health issues, and possibly being violent enhances the health and well-being of all residents. Policy 7.44, consider the use of district land where appropriate to contribute towards and leverage other funding for the development of social and affordable housing. What? How does this project even remotely leverage funding for the development and social and affordable housing? Now, we're going to go to the OCP action plan in 2021, which is also on page 3. Priority action 3, prioritize rental, social, and supportive housing projects to increase the range of housing options. What? How does this project even remotely contribute to this priority action 3? Priority action 5, increase housing diversity to support a range of incomes, household types, and accessibility needs within and close to town and village centers. Again, sorry, this project has nothing to do with that. And then a really bizarre thing, implementing LEMS, include social equity consideration in district decision-making to strive, whatever strive is, for a more inclusive and equitable community. Okay. Then we go on to the rental and affordable housing. I want to say that as I go through this list, there is absolutely nothing about this project, nothing that contributes even remotely to anything in our OCP targeted review, our OCP action plan from 2021. Nothing. There is nothing on this project that even remotely contributes to rental and affordable housing strategy in 2016. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But then I also want to say, Mayor Little and Council, I looked at the BC Housing Plan. And I looked at it through the lens of what are the priorities of BC Housing? The number 1 priority for BC Housing is to house in the Lower Mainland seniors. And the number 2 priority is to house families with more than 3 people. Again, with all due respect to BC Housing and to this municipality, this project has absolutely no integration at all with any policy. I'm going to close because I didn't really realize I was so close to the end of my time. Mayor Little and Council, what I now am aware of is that the only 2 groups of people in 5 years' time that are going to be well housed in the District of North Vancouver will be families with incomes in excess of $100,000 a year and drug addicts. That's not my idea of an inclusive community. Thank you, Mayor Little.
Thank you for your comments, Hazen Colbert. The next speaker I have is Radha Jain, followed by Diane Bowen. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Awesome, thanks. Hi there, my name is Dr. Radha Jain. I'm a family physician and resident of North Vancouver. I work at Lionsgate Hospital, the UPCC, and the clinic at Park and Tilfer. I'm well versed in the health needs and challenges of our community, and I'm concerned and opposed to the proposed low barrier housing and open drug use on Keith Road. Let me begin by acknowledging the critical need for affordable housing in our city. It is a noble cause, one that we all support. However, there is substantial evidence that single-room occupancy buildings do not effectively help the people living in them. They face the same risks, health risks, and criminal justice issues as those who remain unhoused. Even our premier, David Eby, has recognized this failure and stated that BC is phasing out this housing model. Why are we proposing to build an outdated and ineffective housing model? Furthermore, the presence of open drug policy poses significant risk. We cannot ignore the mounting evidence that such accommodation exacerbate existing problems rather than providing genuine solutions. By allowing an environment where drug use is normalized, we inadvertently enable destructive behaviors, particularly the recurrent use of opioids without any motivation to stop or rehabilitate. This only puts the individual residing in these units at risk, but also endangers the safety of our community at large. Placing a building of this nature across the street from a daycare, public park, major intersections, and far from the hospital is not just ill-advised, it's dangerous. As a local physician, I interact frequently without unhoused people with addictions. This site is supposed to be for residents of North Vancouver. At present, there are not 65 people who would be well fitted for this type of housing living in North Vancouver. The proposed housing will inevitably lead to importing people from elsewhere in BC, likely the downtown east side. Quite frankly, we don't have the resources to support this. Placing vulnerable individuals in a location that lack the necessary resources is a recipe for disaster. More overdoses, increased fire department calls, and heightened police presence are inevitable outcomes. There are no plans to increase EMS, RCMP, fire, and the community will be at great risk of harm because of this. The residents of North Vancouver deserve better. Our current approach to opioid use and harm reduction is failing. The number of overdoses has doubled since the opioid epidemic was declared in 2016. It's clear that we need to do better. We cannot continue down a path that history will judge us as inadequate. We must acknowledge our failings and embrace change. We need to create housing that integrates people with addictions into buildings alongside with other functioning community members. Integration into society is key to breaking the cycle of addiction. It is time to invest in programs that support recovery, ensuring that those battling addictions have the resources and support they need to rebuild their lives. It is our responsibility to not only provide shelter, but to create an environment that fosters positive growth and well-being. An article in the Globe and Mail from December 24th highlighted the greatest need for housing is for families and seniors in BC. I propose the facility be designed to accommodate these people, certainly a facility that is free of open drug use. Together, let us strive for solutions that genuinely address the needs of our community without compromising the safety and well-being of our citizens. Let us be a beacon of change in our approach to addictions and housing, ensuring that we build a future that we can be proud of. BC is phasing out SRO housing, so why are you proposing a model that the province has rejected? What we need is a building that can house seniors, families, and individuals who are rehabilitating. That is a model that I, as a physician and a resident of North Vancouver, can support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Radha Jain. Dr. Radha Jain. The next speaker I have is Diane Bowen, followed by, I believe it's Jill Walker. Diane Bowen.
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Diane, and I have lived on Shavington Street for nearly 68 years, just across from 1200 East Keith Road. We listen to traffic on Keith and Mountain Highway day and night. We are breathing in all this air pollution from vehicles sitting at all the lights and the cars backed up Keith Road and Mountain Highway trying to get onto highway number 1. Then the noise pollution of honking horns, people yelling to get going, road rage, police sirens, ambulances, and fire trucks using Keith Road and Mountain Highway. This is all day and night. I can only imagine how many sirens we will have to listen to if the complex is built. Please don't take away any more trees that could help to buffer the noise and help with the air pollution. Half the trees were already removed for the Mountain Highway overpass, which, by the way, has never helped alleviate the congestion on number 1. It's only contributed to huge lineups up Keith Road and traffic lineups from Lynn Valley coming down Mountain Highway. It has only made it worse. We need to think ahead. What will happen if we build so close to this intersection? Obviously, not enough thought went into the Mountain Highway overpass and Keith Road intersection, and I don't think enough thought has gone into this project. In the years to come, there will only be more traffic. Then there will be a minimum of 3 years at least for this build. We will have chainsaws, tree fallers, dump trucks and their trailers, cement trucks, pumper trucks, lumber trucks, paving vehicles, cranes, and other delivery trucks. They will all be using Keith and Mountain Highway. Then there will be the workmen and the flag people with vehicles. Where are they going to park? There will be traffic nightmares because of this. Then all the dust from the new construction and disturbing the soil. I know this because of the build across from my house, which has gone on 2.5+ years, plus the building of the Mountain Highway overpass. The cost of $2.5 million per year for 60 people and $1.7 million for the 5 people in the complex care units for 60 years with an increase every year, I'm sure. It's very expensive to live in this area, and when you can't afford things, this is when break-ins happen. I do believe these people deserve more. They don't deserve to live beside 3 highways. I think all the money would be better spent on a rehab facility and prevention education in another area. This way, it would help these people get back on their feet instead of draining the system and never being able to leave and see a future. The district built the walk along the river, which was beautiful in the beginning, and I know a lot of money was spent to beautify the area, but it looks like the district can't keep up the maintenance. It's already overgrown and you can't even see the river, and the underpass or tunnel is tagged from one end to the other. If this facility is built, you couldn't pay me to walk the area by myself, and I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking this. This area should remain residential and the forest. If one high-rise building is allowed to go in, it will only be a matter of time before it's all high rises. Look at what has happened to Lower Mountain Highway. No houses left. Pretty soon we won't be able to see the sun. We have worked hard over the years and paid our taxes every year. The people who live nearby should get to vote whether it goes through, not council who will never live beside it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your comments, Diane Bowen. I have Jill Walker, followed by Phil McDonald. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Great. Hello, I spoke 2 weeks ago and I was compelled to come back because I wrote a petition, which I'm submitting on change.org in support of this project. And 339 people have signed it, and I've printed their names and included it. And I'm just going to read the small part of the petition people read before signing it. The Lower Mainland is in the middle of a housing crisis. People are struggling to find housing, and more people are at risk of homelessness. Be part of the solution by signing this petition and supporting more housing being built. I work in healthcare and assist young people to find jobs and register for school. And I know firsthand that housing is an integral part of people getting the support they need and making positive changes in their lives. There is a change.org petition to stop this project, and over 1,800 people have signed it. Many are concerned about safety, crime rates increasing, and property values decreasing. In fact, research shows that supportive housing can have a mitigating impact on neighborhood crime. And I've quoted research by Jazid et al., published in 2023, Wu and John, published in 2015, and Albright et al., published in 2013. Furthermore, supported housing has been found to be associated with an increase in property values. And I have 2 papers that back up this point. Finally, supported housing has been shown to decrease homelessness, decrease emergency department use, decrease hospitalizations, and decrease mortality. And this is research by Pang et al., published in 2020. I'm going to use the rest of my time just to read some of the comments that people took the care to write after reading the petition. By Rose Dudley. I believe that everyone has the right to have a home. Those of my generation whose homes have made them wealthy should be thinking of those less fortunate who have no hope of getting into a home unless municipalities assist by building more supportive housing. From Liz Russell, there's a tremendous need for more supportive housing on the North Shore. From John Sparagia, I encourage Lower Mainland residents to support this important housing project, as it will help to alleviate the current housing crisis. We are all connected, and every step we take to help others also helps all of us. By Renee Mohammed. I am signing this petition because we live in a free country where people have rights and deserve housing, a very basic human need. Many of the people who need supported housing have disabilities. We should not allow the barring or prevention of people with disabilities from living in a particular neighborhood any more than we should stop people or prevent people living in a neighborhood based on race. From Byron Wood. I live in the district of North Vancouver where the proposed supported housing is to be built. Both the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Convent of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights recognize adequate housing is a basic human right. People need housing. Please build it. So I'm enclosing the comments and the names in my petition. Thank you for the time to speak.
Thank you very much for your comments. Jill Walker. The next speaker I have is Phil McDonald, followed by Simon Bodlack. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you, Mayor Little and Council. My name is Phil McDonald. I live on Haywood Street, the end of Haywood Street, actually, which is maybe the most exposed area to the proposed development, 1200 Keith. You know, the last thing I want to sound like, I guess, up here is someone just in support of the not in my backyard narrative, who doesn't care about anything or doesn't care about it as long as it's not in their backyard. Speakers before me have talked about, you know, the value of property being affected, their own safety, all those sorts of issues. I won't kind of repeat that stuff. I'm in support. I'm in favor of, greatly in favor of supportive housing. In fact, I feel kind of odd in ways being up here. We moved to Canada sort of a struggling family. My parents sort of struggled through school in Scotland and moved our family to Canada. And I began my life in Canada in a form of supportive housing. So I've come from that to now managing a company in BC, all of BC, that is involved in construction. We have been involved in First Nations housing projects. We've been involved in Habitat for Humanity on both sides of the border. So I'm certainly in support of the causes and the needs for these types of housing. The question is the location, obviously, geography, and obviously I live very close to it. I'm a parent, a young kid like many of us. I'm concerned about the safety and exposure for our community, all those elements of the community across the road from a daycare and lots of families in the area. But I'm also, it occurs to me the safety of the residents and the people that might wind up in this facility, sandwiched between busy roads, Mountain Highway and Keith Road, and the highway behind the facility. These facilities, you don't have to research very far online to see that there is always incidents that follow these types of developments outside the buildings. The people inside the buildings maybe have good intentions, good people trying to recover, get back on their feet, but there is no, positive insulation that they won't be exposed to the bad elements that may wind up, I've read about cases of people being followed to where they're staying because of their drug use and other reasons. And the safety of those residents who wind up in that place, in that location, it would just seem like there's much better locations for this type of housing. I'm in support of this type of housing. I want to sort of say that very clearly. I'm in support of this type of housing. It's the geography. It just does not make sense to me. It's just not a safe area for all the incidents that get recorded around these types of housing developments. And it just seems like every single one I read about, there's always incidents outside the actual unit itself. Like I say, there may be bad elements that sort of follow the good people and the good intentions of the residents. So I'll just conclude there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Phil McDonald. Next speaker I have is Simon Bodlak, followed by Adam Moldenhauer. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you get 5 minutes to address the hearing. Wanting to use so I think you've done it before. It's just a USB under the desk there. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. On December 7th, 2023, I wrote to you that it is well known anecdotally that crime has become rampant around the Travelodge facility, and that I had heard from police that it is a nightmare and that they are called there continually. I had requested crime statistics from the district's community policing department and was told they were not authorized to provide that information to me. So I submitted a Freedom of Information request to obtain the statistics. I have now received the information, which is shown on the screen. For clarity, the statistics I'm presenting are the number of times per year the RCMP has been called to the Travelodge property. They do not include ambulance or fire protection services. In 2018 and 2019, when the Travelodge was being used as a motel versus supportive housing, RCMP were called to the Travelodge facility 33 times and 36 times respectively. These are staggeringly high numbers, approximately once every 10 days, and I expect far higher than most multifamily buildings in the district of North Vancouver. even with these numbers as the base case, we see that when rooms started being rented for supportive housing purposes in the spring of 2020, the calls to police increased 342% to 123 that year, or approximately once every 3 days. In 2022, when the balance of the hotel was converted to supportive housing, there was a 458% increase in calls to the RCMP from 2019 to 165, or almost once every 2 days. In 2023, under LUMA's management, the calls to the RCMP increased 608% from 2019 to 219 calls. This means the RCMP are getting called to the Travelodge supportive housing project more than once every second day. And the statistics for 2023 ended sometime in earlier mid-December, so do not even capture the entire calendar year. In an article in the North Shore News dated July 7th, 2022, Bowen Ma was quoted as saying, "When the province initially began to lease hotels, locations were often not disclosed to avoid perceptions about street crime, for instance, that may have nothing to do with the presence of supportive housing." I've found that whenever there is censorship of information, it is to protect a false premise. The truth stands up to scrutiny. It doesn't need suppression of facts to be able to stand, whereas false premises do. If it were true that supportive housing projects do not increase street crime, there would be no need to hide the locations of supportive housing projects from the public so that they don't mistakenly correlate increased street crime with supportive housing projects. In a similar manner, this project is being advanced under the false premise that there is no evidence of increased crime from supportive housing. We have the most relevant example possible, an active supportive housing project of similar size being managed by the proposed operator that shows a more than 600% increase in calls to the RCMP since its conversion. I originally spoke on behalf of 38 signatories who live in the secluded area immediately east of this project. And one of the biggest concerns was safety. I want to again express gratitude to this council for diligently hearing our concerns and hope that these statistics will help you decide to defeat this project as and where proposed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Simon Bodlack. Next speaker I have is Adam Moldenhauer, followed by Dwayne Smith. When you're comfortable, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Your worship and distinguished members of council. My name is Adam Moldenhauer, and I, along with my wife and 2 children, ages 2 and 6, live within 25 meters of the proposed development. Thank you for providing this opportunity to hear from the community. I'm a first-time speaker, but I'm met in person with some of you, as I and my neighbor Simon represent the voice of opposition to this development by the entire block of homeowners on East 8th Street and East Keith Road that are most effective, except for one signature which we couldn't get. They lived in Toronto. In that parcel of homeowners, we are approximately 25% seniors, 25% single, and 30% young families with a total of 14 children who are 2 years to 14 years old. For those of you that answered our emails, thank you for being so generous with your early mornings and your weekends for us. Over the last months of this hearing, there's been overwhelming and widespread opposition to the project. There's certainly been some impassioned speakers and at times some hurtful remarks. But if I could summarize the community's reaction in a soundbite, I'd say it's been hundreds of local residents through formal petitions like ours and informal petitions like the change.org one that has amassed 1,936 signatures as of this morning, or as individuals who are opposed to the development for the very real and, as of today, validated by the North Van Police Department, safety concerns it poses for families and the outdoor public spaces in which they play, something so important to all of us here in North Van. BC Housing claims this is a controlled housing site with many examples of prior success, but we've also heard this is one of the biggest supportive housing units of its kind in BC, and that only one other facility exists of similar size and scope, which sits beside a police station and a hospital. Surely there would be good people living here, like Deborah, but with an N of 65, it's also reasonable to assume that complications due to mental health, drug, and addictions trauma, even if it's just a percentage of the occupants, will have meaningful spillover to the less than 65 people who have invested in their futures and families on our block. And the valid concern that I keep hearing come up again and again is what happens when things don't go as planned. For us on the street, the bricks and mortar of the 65-room facility is permanent, no matter how fleeting the provincial political party, initiative, or project may be. We are the ones who live on and walk these streets and paths, and we are the ones who will be living and breathing the fallout should things turn out less safe than we are being asked to just trust in. The constant 911s and sirens, the drug paraphernalia in the tall grasses that line the paths down to Bridgman Park, the safety profile of what it means to be a single woman to go to the bus stop or for a run when it's dark, or for our kids to walk home from the bus stop in broad daylight, the damage to vehicles and property, and subsequent feelings of vulnerability one has when their space has been violated. These are issues we won't be able to drive away from at 5 p.m. This will be our new reality around the clock and without reprieve. And to be clear, we do not have these problems today. There's undoubtedly issues in North Vancouver overall, as there is across Canada. But in our neighborhood, no one is breaking into my car right now. No one is finding needles along the paths, and no one is feeling like they can't walk home in a safe manner. We do live in a safe neighborhood. The travel lodge itself, not including the surrounding homes and businesses, had 219 calls to the police in the first 11 months of 23. This represents a 30% increase over 22, which represented a 36% increase over 21, which represented a staggering 340% increase over 19 before the travel lodge took new residents. The evidence shows that crime does not decrease after an initial spike, which is what one housing advocate claimed earlier. According to the Freedom of Information Act at the DNV Police Department, which is where these stats come from, crime swiftly and regularly increases when you mass warehouse people experiencing homelessness in such a grand scale. If you vote yes, this marks a pivotal time when many of us young families who are deep into debt and mortgages that other parts of the country can't fathom will have to decide if we stay in North Van or not. My wife, who is a nurse practitioner practicing in North Van, and I aren't up for that level of risk, but we can't afford a nicer house in North Van either. We would sincerely hope that you, our representatives in this municipality, have our welfare and our family's welfare in mind as you choose whether this location suits its prolonged proposed use. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your comments, Adam Moldenhauer. The next speaker I have is Dwayne Smith, followed by Nadia Graham. Just a reminder, when virtual participants are, their name is coming up in the list, we're going to send a pop-up to you that's going to ask you to become a panelist. We need you to accept that, or we won't be able to get you into the meeting. Okay, when you're comfortable, welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Okay, well, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I don't have anything prepared. I'm a first-time speaker here, but I did want to just express some of my concerns and thoughts on this. I'm actually an architect. I'm one of the owners of a 30-person architecture firm. So we actually specialize in supportive housing, below market rental housing. Our office is actually in the base of an 18-story rental tower. And I currently have close to 400 units that I'm personally involved in that are below market. So it's something that, I don't think there's a debate that it's something that's needed. I, however, live up the hill. I live close to Brooksbank School. And I've been involved in a number of these projects. Some I can't talk about with City of Surrey down around the Newton area. So it's something that I'm quite familiar with. And I think there's been a lot of conversation. I haven't tuned into the previous council meetings, so I understand there's probably a number of people with concerns with respect to the geographic location of this facility. I mean, it's pretty obvious that, you know, literally across the road is a Montessori and a childcare. There's a number of them that also surround it with, you know, direct paths to schools. Brooks Bank, there's another school that's probably going to be under construction, is my understanding, pretty close to it as well. There's also a liquor store and you know, recently a cannabis shop that arrived during the pandemic. So there, you know, there's a real mix of things around it. You know, there's a lot of density and growth happening near the parks and Bridgman Park. And so I think geography is just one part of it. And I think I wanted to focus on the other side of it, which is, you know, a number of these facilities that go in, they need to really look at what are the supportive programs that go in beside it. My wife and I actually, you know, early days before we had our son, we were, you know, I like to think of ourselves as early adopters. We moved into the Olympic Village in early days when it transitioned from Olympic housing into housing. And we lived there for a while, and it was, you know, it was a very nice area. And there was a moment in time where a facility not unlike this one, probably I haven't compared relative size and density, but it's, you know, similar program, no other support mechanism within it. Went in, and the day it opened, the week it opened, things changed almost overnight. London Drugs did not stay open till 11. They started closing earlier. Things started to shut down, and all the things that people have mentioned tonight, you know, they do happen. All of a sudden there's needles in benches, and you know, it's a byproduct of what's happening there. I think the thing that I want to kind of drive home is that, you know, putting these types of facilities in without the support to kind of work with it, it's a real challenge. A lot of the models, there's some in Alberta where, you know, there's others around there where, I mean, if you need RCMP or whatever the right program is to support that, you know, we lived it firsthand. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that there's a real reason I'm bringing that up, is because that's the reason I ended up in North Vancouver. We're like, we're going to have a son, and the reason, or a child at that point, we didn't know it was going to be a boy. And we moved away from the Olympic Village to North Vancouver for those reasons. And, you know, when I saw the sign go up, that, you know, I let the first couple of meetings go by, and once I found out there was kind of an additional one, I thought, you know, I might as well come down and at least, you know, put in my own experience. And so, you know, I think in closing, it's not that, you know, myself, and I'm sure a lot of people aren't against supportive housing or housing of this nature. Geography is just a small part. You can't put a building like this in and just have a vestibule and nothing else there to support it. And I don't know the particular program of this building, but I don't, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there is, you know, a number of other programs that are being embedded into it. I may be wrong on that, but you know, if it is going to go ahead, and it's somewhat a done deal, I think that would be, you at least have to look at what needs to be put in there to make it safe. And expecting it to be safe, but just by building it will not happen.
Thank you very much for your comments, Dwayne Smith. The next speaker I have is Nadia Graham, followed by Farzad Garibi. Nadia Graham, I believe, is joining us virtually.
Yeah,
Can you hear me,
hi.
Nadia Graham?
I can, yeah.
Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you. This is my first council meeting on this topic and my first time speaking. So I may be bringing up some points that have been brought up before. But I'd just like to point out that the irony of this proposal lies in the fact that individuals housed in this wet development are allowed to use substances within the safety of their units. However, in order to purchase these substances, which are often illegal, they will need to leave the building, which creates this paradoxical situation where the shelter provides a safe space for substance use, but also indirectly contributes to an increase in drug-related activities in the surrounding area. The need for individuals to seek out and purchase these substances can attract people involved in selling drugs to the area, which will inevitably lead to an escalation in drug-related activities in local parks, forests, and residential areas. And we know, and it's been brought up, that drug habits and substance abuse can be expensive and may lead individuals to engage in criminal activities to support their addiction, contributing to a cycle of criminal behavior and crime. And so therefore, putting this development in a neighborhood with parks, playgrounds, nearby elementary and high schools raise concerns about the impact on this diverse and often, in many cases, vulnerable population. Because we know that exposure to drug and drug-related activities at a young age can have a long-lasting negative impact on a child's physical and mental well-being. So I work as a child and youth mental health counselor, and therefore I know it's crucial to consider the potential consequences and this development could have on our children, and to ensure the well-being and safety of this young, neurodiverse, and vulnerable, impressionable population. The fact that this development is so close to a high school where my child, one of my children attends, concerns me because it creates an easier access to drugs for students, increasing the risk of substance abuse among this population. So my son, my eldest, is neurodiverse. And so we moved to this area from Strathcona, as the speaker spoke about earlier, because we know how vulnerable and susceptible he is to the influences in his environment. And we are trying our best to keep him safe and headed in a direction that positively contributes to his community. And I'd also like to highlight that the impact that this project will have on call volume for emergency services from the front lines. So my husband is a local firefighter, and this facility will ultimately be bringing residents in from off the North Shore, obviously some on the North Shore, but a development of this size will bring residents with complex needs from other communities. And despite the supportive services mentioned that will be within this facility, medical call volume will increase. And I'm not sure if people are aware that currently the North Shore is facing a significant shortage of ambulance coverage, which is impacting the ability to support residents in emergency and often life-threatening situations. On numerous occasions, there is very limited and at times no ambulance coverage available for the North Shore. As fire trucks are required to wait on scene for an ambulance to arrive for transport, this additionally leaves residents with limited medical and fire support. Adding a facility of this size will undoubtedly increase the demand for emergency response and potentially leave ambulances and fire trucks out of service to respond to taxpayer calls. This diversion of resources will not only affect the response time for emergencies, but also compromises the safety and well-being of community residents. And this worries me for my aging parents. Exploring the development of a dry mixed housing facility could offer a safe and supportive alternative for individuals in this community. So for several years, I worked at the Salvation Army Homestead on Oak Street, a mixed facility housing women and children in a shelter, as well as a treatment center for women dealing with addiction. And on countless occasions, the women from both the shelter and the treatment side told me that what enabled them to begin the road to recovery was having a safe housing and treatment away from where they were using and away from that lifestyle. And they were grateful to have a safe place to bring their children. These types of facilities help rebuild lives for families. So I don't think I'm going to have time, but I would have preferred that council look at a mixed housing model to promote the integration and inclusion within the community, allowing individuals in recovery to live alongside their peers who may not be dealing with substance misuse issues. So thank you for this time.
Thank you very much for your comments, Nadia Graham. The next speaker I have is third-time speaker Farzad Garibi. Farzad joining us virtually or in person here today? Oh, they're on the virtual side. We're just getting them connected to the meeting. The next speaker will be Huri Sharzad, which I believe I've seen that name virtually on there. So that will be next. Farzad, can you hear me? You are muted in the Zoom system. Farzad, it still shows you as muted in the Zoom system. Oh, wait. Okay, so we're going to move on to the list and we'll come back to Farzad. We'll just check on your technical difficulties here, but you're still marked as muted on the list. So I'm going to switch the order up here. I'm going to go to Huri Shirzad, and then we'll come back to Farzad after that. Huri Shirzad, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
Welcome. I can hear you clearly. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you so much. And thanks a lot. This is my second talking here, and I really appreciate the timing that you give us to be heard. Actually, I would like to express my deep dissatisfaction regarding this proposal, as I already mentioned in the previous time as well. There were different kind of reasons for that, which I already addressed, but I will just try to give more reasons for this about this proposal, that why I am not happy about it. Actually, I'm not saying that we shouldn't support housing for homeless or the people who are in need, but there are different reasons that's why this location and this proposal to change this zoning is not efficient. Actually, as there are several people just mentioned, there are so many children and seniors are living in this area. Actually, this is a kind of family-oriented area. There are so many playgrounds and schools around here, so it's really not safe to have some sort of people who has, addiction. They are addicted to different kind of drugs, and they might have different issues mentally and physically, which will, of course, harm the health of people here. And one of the other reasons that I want to talk about is about the exact location of 1200 in Keith Road. As you know, there are so many trees there, and if they want to have this housing there, it's like giving away all those trees, and you know that it's near highway, and I'm sure that those trees in the area may help the air to not to be polluted due to all the the cars and everything, the commuting there. So I think that it's not beneficial for the community to take away all those trees, and that's a very beautiful area, which is really depressing if you want to rezone in the area, and that's really not helpful for the community, because we need to think about the majority of people who are living here. We shouldn't just think about the minority who are in need. So everything should be in consideration. And as you know, this location is near the highway, and I'm sure that with those numbers and statistics that the other people already gave you guys, it's like it would be a lot of traffic there. It would be very disturbing for the people who are living here, and I'm sure that it will be increased during the time by different kind of noisy cars and everything that you already know. I don't want to mention again because it's already mentioned before, but traffic is also one of the most concerns about this location, which will be very disturbing. In general, it's really expensive to live here in this area and pay taxes. So it's not fair to the families around here to face this unsafety and, take hours for them to reach their home because of the traffic, and just take their, peaceful ambience of the community and the area. I'm sure that the people who are in need to be in some places which are not that much family oriented, so that they can be supported by different organizations, of course. And there should be some places near, like, I don't know, police stations or something like that. I'm not professional in that. I'm just telling you the reasons that I think it might be really dangerous and harmful to the communities, families, children, seniors who are living here. And yeah, that's it. Thank you again for this consideration, and thank you for the opportunity to give me to talk to you again.
Thank you for your comments, Huri Shirzad. The next speaker, I'm just going to go back to Farzad Garibi to see if we figured out the technical challenges. So Farzad has just been reconnected to the panel, and we'll see if we've sorted that out. I see you are now unmuted. Farzad, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry for, I've just changed the system to be able to connect.
Okay. I'm just gonna, yes, we can hear you. If you can speak up nice and loud. We are getting a little bit of an echo, but also if you could just speak loud and clear, that'd be great with the microphone nice and close. But welcome, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Okay, thank you. My name is Farzad, and I live in North Vancouver. By the way, I'm an engineer working in an engineering company. So I want to say that I don't agree with this proposal. And for million of reasons that, everybody mentioned. One of the things that I want to ask you is, please tell us what is the criteria of making a decision about this proposal. I'm just thinking, I can see so many negative points in this proposal, but I don't know what would be the criteria of making a decision. If it is just a presentation by any organization that want to handle this system. I was in the first public hearing as well, and I was just seeing a couple of, rosy pictures and some reasons that didn't make sense to me, and trying to provide some positive aspect of providing this facility, but it didn't make sense to me. So having experience for a couple of years in engineering companies, I always, having a challenge of, making good decision. But this is not clear for me that what would be your criteria of making a decision. I would be grateful if you could announce it. If it is just a people's idea or people's opinion, we don't even know that what's the percentage of people who are agree and what's the percentage of people who don't agree. So for me, this proposal doesn't make sense, and I don't support it, and I don't agree with it. So thank you very much for providing this opportunity to me.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Farzad Garibi. The next speakers I have are Fred Cantor and Sean Rivers. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, respected councilors. Good evening, everybody. I don't want to take a seat. I want to stand up. Is that okay?
I do need you pretty close to the microphone,
Yeah.
just so we can pick it up on the recording. That distance is okay.
That's okay. Okay, perfect. That sounds good. First of all, thank you for having me here in this public hearing. I would like to basically start saying that I'm not a person to judge who's going to make the drugs there or who's not, or who's going to buy there or not, or who's going to be moving there or not, or where they're going to be buying the drugs. I'm here because this meeting that is happening right now is very similar to the meeting that we have in November with the Lillooet public housing as well. Even I know there's two different projects, we have some similarities here. There's two different things that are happening here. the first thing is like, we have very serious problems of the planning of the projects, and we have very serious problem with the infrastructure of the city right now. I want you public to basically compare this site and the old Lillooet site. They're very close, but they're very different. And what happened, what they did with the old Lillooet place, they basically approved to go ahead with the project, but they didn't have the proper infrastructure plan. They don't have any planning, real serious planning moving forward with the school, with the housing, with the demographics, with a lot of things that are happening right now. So basically what is happening is, this is cooking and it's boiling. They jamming people there by the hour, 5,000 cap students. They have 600 students in Limor School, a lot of young families with little babies, and we just have just one entrance. I am an engineer by trade, and I have the pleasure to work with the best engineers in town, design the best capital projects for this province. And what I see what is happening with this city right now, and with the district and with the planning, is just a catastrophe, what is happening here. I was watching online like a month ago when Councillor Lisa Muir was the only person that was defending the proposal and against the proposal, and the other councillors went wrong and they vote over that. That was 6-1. So on that meeting of those days is very similar to what we're having here.
Mr. Cantor, can I just have you face the microphone, please?
So basically what happened is it's going to be very similar. So the point is this: there's no risk assessment, there's no engineering planning for this kind of things. There's serious things happening with the city. RCMP things that is not enough. Firefighter services are not enough. A lot of jamming people, demographic density populations are not happening the right way. So we got a problem with the city. I'm just here to say, follow with this, follow with the other location, what's going to happen down the road, and just prepare for the next elections. Thank you, Lisa Muir, to basically help, but this is just getting very, very cramped. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Fred Cantor. The next speaker I have is Sean Rivers, joining us here in person, followed by Heidi Nesbitt. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Okay, well, I'm not much of a public speaker, but I'm a pretty passionate member of the community of North Vancouver. Let me start off with, I'm here before you all today as a concerned member of this community, deeply troubled by the proposed 65-unit supportive housing project in our neighborhood. While I understand the importance of providing support for those in need, we also must prioritize the safety and well-being of our families and current community members in North Vancouver. I've had the good fortune of living in North Vancouver pretty much my whole entire life. I worked really hard to try to keep my lifestyle and my life here in North Vancouver. And I've had the privilege of an opportunity to meet a woman, have a couple kids, and I'm raising a couple kids here in North Vancouver, both under the age of 12. As a resident in the area, somewhat close to this proposed facility, I come in to use the trail network, the bicycle, safe bike riding zones and such, experiencing the parks, playgrounds with my children, and also I have a daughter that is in a supportive education program through the Kenneth Gordon School, and we use this thoroughfare next to this property to get her to and from school on our bikes when the weather allows, and also sometimes when the weather doesn't allow, much to her chagrin. What I've found over the last couple of years in North Vancouver, with our exploring and using the infrastructure that was so important to myself coming up as a kid, feeling safe, and the concept of community and exploring in my neighborhoods, are becoming less and less desirable, perceived to be less safe. And it concerns me to bring this facility down into a zone that has this infrastructure that we use. Both my kids came up through the Park Place daycare and Montessori school right across the street from your proposed development. And we use Bridgman Park on a frequent basis. We've enjoyed plenty of picnics and even later afternoon going into dinner time with the covered picnic area down at Bridgman Park. Connective trails to get us down to MEC, some grocery shopping opportunities with Park and Tilford. Also exploring over to go on to the travel lodge concept and the perceived troubles that are happening over in that neighborhood. We've ridden our bicycles over and tried to experience the new library and rec center building that was built on the old Cap West community area. And, you know, in the first 6 months that it was open was the first time we had a chance to visit it. And I was actually somewhat shocked as to the amount of disrepair that the sort of pathways are around that community and through the infrastructure that was constructed there. You know, as you get closer down to the travel lodge area with the old Earl's site and stuff, the discarded bicycles and other garbage that's been left aside by people that are spending time outside of those buildings and hanging out in that sort of no man's zone area close to the racket center and access to the rugby pitch. It's pretty disheartening, and trying to explain to a 7-year-old as to what's going on there is a really difficult thing. Using up my time here. I've worked in neighborhoods where drug and homelessness has been an issue. I worked for 3 years down sort of the railway and Dunleavy zone and had to deal with drug interactions, usage, and gaining access to things that people need in that type of sense. And it creates a very messy, unsafe place with sharps and other things left behind, human feces, things that are dangerous to the average person to be interacting with. Basically, with the 65 unit place that's being put before council, it exposes our neighborhood to this negative history that other areas have had. And I do not support it. My family does not support it. And I'd like to know how the District of North Vancouver is giving the safety and concepts to myself and my family as taxpayers long-term for this type of thing. What am I explaining to my kids going down through this zone when the inevitable is going to happen? We've already seen it over on Capilano Road, and now we're just going to bring a second site over here to the bottom of Mountain Highway. I do not support it. Most of my neighbors do not support it. And thanks for letting me speak my mind.
Thank you very much for your comments, Sean Rivers. The next speaker I have is Heidi Nesbitt, followed by virtual participant Brett. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you. My name is Heidi Nesbitt. I am a resident of North Vancouver District for about the past 20 years. I live in Blue Ridge, and I'm a mom to 4 young children, all of whom attended North Star Montessori. We also, as a family, use Bridgman, Sealand, and Inter-River Parks on a weekly basis. We are river kayakers and kayak on the Lynn, and we use the BMX park. We're members of the North Shore BMX Club. And my kids skateboard at the skate park there, and I trail run on all the Lynn Valley trails. I am here today to speak in support of the proposed rezoning and the supportive housing project. I believe we have a great opportunity before us here to show the size of our hearts and the depth of our compassion for some of our most vulnerable citizens. Instead of asking where else these homes we can get pushed to, what other communities they belong in, I'm hoping that we can ask ourselves how we can help these residents feel welcome here. I think that
Many of these future residents will have faced an entire lifetime of judgment and shame for their poverty and mental health struggles. And these are people in our community that we care about. I think that we're all really close to somebody who is just a hair's breadth away, either our sons, daughters, grandparents, from facing a life of poverty and potentially being homeless. They all deserve a home. We all deserve a home in a trusting, caring, vibrant community, someplace like North Vancouver, a home where they will have the same opportunities that we do, to put their things away in a safe place, hang up pictures, and know that a hot meal is waiting for them. I also am an architect, and so in that capacity, I work a lot in social and supportive housing. And from a design perspective, I would urge district staff and council, BC Housing, and the design team to consider incorporating trauma-informed design principles on this project. There's a lot of research that has gone into what can make these buildings and the landscape really supportive for the residents and for the community around them. So I hope as the project goes forward into design development, that that's something that everybody can continue to push forward. These principles will ultimately help the residents feel safe and thrive over time. To that end, research also shows that isolation and loneliness can have significant detrimental health effects. And I would recommend that a third-party social wellness design expert be retained to review the design and provide impartial advice on how the project can fit into the community to better outcomes. Finally, in conclusion, I'd like to remind everyone listening that dignified housing is an unconditional human right. We all get to have safe homes to live in, whether we're poor, are struggling with mental illness, and we should never be ostracized from a neighborhood because we haven't met the neighbor's standards for wealth and wellness. Poverty disproportionately affects already underrepresented and marginalized communities, such as our LGBTQ2S friends and family, people of color, new immigrants, and Indigenous people. More diverse forms of housing on the North Shore will make us all stronger, healthier, and more resilient. I am so happy to welcome this project and hopefully many more like it in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your comments, Heidi Nesbitt. The next speaker I have is virtual participant Brett, and followed by virtual participant Scott Pittman.
Hi, Brett is my husband. I would actually speak to you on our behalf.
Okay.
Yes, is that okay?
Yeah, we'd love to have the benefit of your name just for the record.
Yeah. First name and last name?
Please.
Yeah, first name is Lucia, Lucia, and the last name is Baranova, Baranova.
Thank you very much. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you. So my name is Lucia, and I'm a homeowner in this neighborhood, and I strongly oppose to this project. For the past 20 years, I have been working in the hospitality industry as a general manager in downtown Vancouver. For 18 years, until just a few years ago, I worked as a general manager at the Howard Johnson Hotel on Granville Street, that is now a homeless shelter that is run by BC Housing. I have firsthand experience with what happens to the neighborhood once you build a homeless shelter in there. I do not oppose helping homeless people. There's a lot of initiative at my current work, and even when I was a general manager at the Howard Johnson, to help homeless people. Like I said, I've been a general manager there for 18 years, and there was a lot of homelessness on the street, and we lived with these guys. We helped them. We not only help them to give them a food, we also run certain initiatives that we would donate our mattresses, we would donate sheets, we would donate towels. I do that to this day. I work in a different hotel now. This is what we do. So we help them all the time. Having a homeless shelter that has attached a injection site is something that it's just on a very different level. Like I said, I experienced firsthand what happens to the building once it becomes a homeless shelter. Within a month of hotel becoming a homeless shelter, the whole neighborhood just changed significantly. It was like day and night. And the whole neighborhood became scary. We used to have businesses on both sides of the hotel. One was a nightclub, one was a restaurant. These guys would pay us $45,000 a month for rent. These guys had to close their businesses because they were no longer able to work there because of all the druggies and homeless people all around the building. Within 3 months, the whole neighborhood was gone. Graffiti everywhere, broken doors, windows, businesses nearby were closing down. There's a huge residential building right behind the hotel called Brava. And the Strata had to hire extra security because they had car break-ins, residents were scared, hassled, everything. There are numerous hotels that are nearby the Howard Johnson Hotel. And now they are in a no-go area called Red Zone. They lost significant chunk of money. Their guests coming from all over the world. Everybody knows they are in the red zone, they're no-go zone. And these guys are suffering just because of that. The residents all around, they were also given a phone number to call for help. Well, guess what? Just like the gentleman before, I believe his name was Simon Bodlak, the amount of calls was significant. Actually, at some point, there was a VPD car parked in front of the hotel for 3 months straight just to help with all the hassling and all the problems. BC Housing is running another hotel that is called Patricia Hotel. This Patricia Hotel is on Hastings Street. Hastings Street is already pretty bad, and this neighborhood became actually worse than before. So, like I said, I strongly oppose to a site being built here because we have children here, we have residents. I'm not opposing to help people, but as we know, it's really hard to integrate people who have drug problems into society. If you ask them, they would actually even tell you this themselves. And there's a lot of misconception about safe injection site. Safe injection site has no business of being in this neighborhood. It has no business being on Granville Street, but here it's even more. So I'm sorry, I just have to strongly oppose to this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. The next speaker I have is Scott Pittman, followed by Sam. Scott Pittman, can you hear me?
I can there, Mayor Little. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, clearly. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am a first-time speaker and really appreciate the opportunity. I'm a Lower Lynn Valley resident near the Mountain Highway intersection of Arbor Lynn and Mountain Highway, so relatively close to the site. Just like to start with a theme of rejecting the proposal or the proposed development on several grounds. Number one, the community of North Vancouver is absolutely legendary. Community of Lynn Valley in particular, world-class in my opinion. We're a very inclusive community. We've got each other's back. We're there for each other's children, and I think it's a community of like-minded people. I am in favor of supportive housing in the right location, and vehemently disagree with the location that's in question here. This site is really the gateway of Lynn Valley and very prominent site of the North Shore. We have 3 children aged 7, 10, and 12. Like a previous speaker, we've had all 3 of them in the Park Place daycare, which is immediately adjacent to the site. They have all enjoyed the safety of excursions to Richmond Park through the trail network and the like over the years. They're obviously elementary age now and not in the daycare. We as a family enjoy the trail network through the river, cycling, walking, and indeed Park and Tilford is indeed our closest shopping center and grocery location. As the children grow into an age where the normal freedoms come, we would actively be encouraging them to run down and pick up milk and bread and so on and so forth from the local supermarket and pick up sushi and the like. This really does present a gateway to the North Shore or the gateway to Lynn Valley issue that does the risk of it going the wrong way doesn't warrant the proposal as it stands. So in summary, I'm not going to take my full 5 minutes. We have a legendary world-class community. This is the wrong place, being the gateway to Lynn Valley in particular, and having this facility in its proposed state as the gateway site. And I am in favor of supportive housing just in the right location. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your comments, Scott Pittman. I have a virtual participant with the name Sam. I'm going to need you to add a last name. We've had, I think, 3 different Sam speakers.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, this is Sam Rapp. And
Sam Rapp. And have you been a speaker before, Sam?
Yes.
1 time or 2 or 3?
2.
2, okay. So this is your 3rd time speaking, okay?
Yes.
Welcome, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Sure. Actually, I believe this is the 6th session in these meetings, and I have joined all these meetings in person or virtual. And I do not want to repeat all the concerns, and before that, I strongly oppose this project. And I do not want to repeat all concerns, because in these 6 sessions and meetings, people say all I wanted to say, and I personally I've said too. But just after 6 meetings and sessions, I think that all the people and the council members and Mr. Mayor, now they have a clear picture as compared to the first session about the majority and minority of people who are against this project and people who have talked or signed a petition in favor. I just give you 2 numbers. There's a petition people sign in favor of this project, 330 people. Now we are talking, I just checked it right now, the people who signed a petition against these projects and oppose this proposal project, 1,995. Just 5 get to 2,000 people signed the petition against this project in change.org. So, and all those people who talked about in favor never ever mentioned about location. All of them said that, okay, these people need home, or this is the need, or that kind of things. And all people who talked oppose this proposal project, all of them said that it's not about compassionate. We understand that need. It's the location. I just give you another updated example. 2 days ago, just we had a slight snowing in North Vancouver. The Keithrow traffic, just a slight snow, all the way back to the Lynn Valley from Grand Boulevard. My wife, that usually get to home in 10 minutes, 2.5 hours, got almost 3 hours, got stuck just in Grand Boulevard to get to this Keithrow. We live in Shavington, 5 minutes walking distance to the proposal. And this project would take to being built about 3 years. And imagine with just this traffic, this one example, The other thing is about that minority and majority. I just want to talk directly to the council members and the mayor. Well, you know what's the difference between the Canada and a country that they came like Iran? Is a democratic system that we have in Canada, that the majority voice is supposed to be here. It's not about the number of the Mercedes or BMWs or that kind of things or modern buildings that are in Canada or the other countries in Middle East. It's a democratic system that the people don't have there and the people have here. So from the first session to now, it's been clear, even this session, how many people are in favor talk, how many people against this project talked. So it's just that so clear that, and it would be big disappointment that if is this fundamental and basic feature of the democratic system in Canada would be ignored if this project would be approved, that the most eligible people who are supposed to talk about this are the neighbors of this project, the people who would have to deal with the aftermath and consequences of this project. And it's obvious the majority of them are against that. By petition, by the number of people who talk against that. Please follow that the system that is Canada is built on it, and we are proud that we live in this system. Please listen to the majority voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Sam. Rab. I have one more speaker virtually, but I want to make sure that people in the room are also getting a chance to see a hand here. Are you prepared to speak right now? Come on up. Welcome when you're comfortable. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing. If you could start with your name, that would be appreciated. And then after this speaker, we have Allison Cameron joining us virtually. Will be up next.
Hello, I'm Stefan Lim, and I am 21 years old. I'm probably the youngest person here. And I would like to speak for the youth. I would like to say that a lot of my friends are in support of this program. They're all very busy in school. I'm lucky enough to be very well off with my family, so I got to take a gap year. Yeah, I just like to say that I think this proposal is good, and I think it'll help the people of North Vancouver. Now, some of the complaints I've seen, tree removal. We have a lot of trees in North Van, and these trees do not shield any of the residential houses. They're actually in between the houses and the commercial area, so I don't understand that complaint. Although I do like trees, and I feel sad that so many trees get cut down here. The concern about drug addicts, I'm kind of weird. I like to go on night walks. I find it very calming. I go on walks like 1 a.m., 3 a.m., all across North Vancouver. I have never been stabbed or approached by a homeless person. So I don't think the homeless people are going to stab anybody, put anybody in danger. The traffic, yeah, it's really bad. I don't know why it isn't 2 lanes all the way down Keith, or at least if the bus could get, that's off topic, sorry. I don't know what I'm doing. This is my first time come here.
You're doing fine.
I also don't know what I'm doing. It's a family-oriented neighborhood, and people are concerned about their kids. What if I have to explain to my kids that there are poor people? Oh my God, there's poor people. You moved away from the poor people to be here. Yeah. And a lot of people are concerned about the property values. Our house, I think when my parents bought their first house, it was $600,000, and there was $1 million when we moved into our second home, and now it's $2 million. I'm probably not going to be able to afford a home, and projects like this can help make it more affordable for more people. It's not for me, but I think we need more people in North Van. And yeah, I'm going to leave now because I am done basically. So thank you very much. And I support this program to help the people who need it.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. I think we had an 11-year-old on the second night, so you may be in competition for youngest on that one. Yes. The next speaker I have is virtual speaker Allison Cameron. And then is there another hand in the room here? I see back here. We'll go there. Is that row 6 aisle? Allison Cameron, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Clearly, welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you. So this is my first time speaking. I was actually a bit reluctant to come forward just because I am very interested and supportive of these type of facilities, but kind of as I was listening more to the information brought forward, I thought it would be important to kind of share some of my concerns. So my husband and I moved to Lynn Valley from downtown about 4 years ago, and because we wanted to start a family. And what drew us here was just how family friendly this area is. I have strong concerns about the impact that this place would have on our neighborhood. We live about 500 meters away, and our 1-year-old attends the daycare across the street. We also regularly go to the nearby playgrounds and the parks. As I mentioned, I am an advocate for supportive housing units, but feel that this one would be better suited for maybe low-income families that would, benefit from being in our community and this kind of family-friendly community where they have daycares and community centers, playgrounds, trails, schools, just an opportunity for them to kind of integrate themselves along with all us other families in the neighborhood. And I'm struggling to see how this would benefit and the individuals that are living on their own and have substance abuse issues, and how this would benefit our neighborhood. Especially when I'm not seeing a really clear safety plan, and the facility, it's a facility where they're allowed to use drugs, and I'm also not seeing really a strong rehabilitation program for them. So I am worried about the potential impact, and I would love to be able to, reduce my son's exposure or potential exposure to people using drugs and things like that. So yeah, I think that's that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments, Allison Cameron. Hey, gentlemen on the aisle, welcome. When you're comfortable, if you could start with your name, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, of course. I'm Kevin Gubin. This is my first meeting of this kind at all. I'm born and raised in North Vancouver. I'm 30 years old. I have firsthand experience in addiction and mental health issues, PTSD, depression, and addiction. And let me tell you, when there's lots of noise going on up in your head, the last place you want to be is beside a highway with even more noise going on. And when you're in that state of mind, you're not in control of yourself. If you have depression going on, you have a highway and a bridge right beside you. You've given them the weapons of their choice that's gonna kill them. I've also written down a few stuff because I'm a little bit nervous, but so I have experience with addiction and mental health, so I'm speaking from experience and from the point of view of people living there. They will live in the bush once they've been evicted or kicked out of the place. Their friends will come to their houses with them. There won't be just one person there. There's no structured program there for them to rehabilitate. And if one person in that place wants to try and get sober, there is zero chance of them getting sober because you become a product of your environment. If you're trying to get off drugs and you're withdrawing in your room and all you're thinking about is drugs and you know your neighbors are doing them, how hard is it to just knock on the door? And when you have a bad influx of drugs, a bad batch, look at how many people died downtown. Imagine that being in one building. That being said, from a drug and a criminal organization point of view, that's a money haven right there. You send someone in there who's a dealer, they've got the whole building on lock because there's no drug protocol. People are going to be dying, doing drugs, selling drugs. It's going to be a crime haven. It's going to be turned the lower part of Keith Road into a mini Hastings. because there's so much bush cover. There's going to be nobody to tell anybody what to do. Overdoses will go unnoticed and be higher numbers. Drug dealers, criminal organizations will take advantage of the building and full of possible customers. I don't feel that the proposed tenants is there such a poorly thought out proposal. It feels like this demographic that we're talking about is very vulnerable and there's no plan set in place. Like, you know what, let's build a building, let's throw 62 units in it and let's put them there and see what happens. Use drugs, do what you want. What do you think is gonna happen? It's just common sense at the end of the day. I was born and raised in North Vancouver. That used to be a park, Bridgman Park, you were not supposed to go to at nighttime. In the last 10 years, I have gone there safely, walked my dog at nighttime. But when I went there as a teenager, we used to drink there and you never went there without a weapon. And I do not want that park to become that park again for my kids. Because when I went down there when I was a teenager, there's been bodies found in there in a fire pit that has been left there for over 24 hours. What do you think is going to happen when you have all more like-minded people like that there? And when you're going through psychosis, which happens when you're doing drugs, you do not know where you are, who you are, what is going on. You're seeing things. And the last thing you want is to have that happen while there's a family having a picnic there. Because psychosis can happen any time of day, not just nighttime. It can happen in the middle of the day. And as for the cars going by, people are going to get hit by cars. Look at what's happening on Hastings. It's a 30 zone and people are still getting hit by cars. That's a highway off ramp. There's trucks flipping over, people getting hit. Somebody just died there not too long ago. So I think that this is very, very poorly thought out. I have never planned to come to this thing, but I've been born and raised in North Van. I feel like North Van is just turning into a mini downtown. You guys are just putting buildings everywhere. But this one in particular is just so poorly thought out. It's like the busiest intersection in North Vancouver and you want to put the most vulnerable people there. Yeah, so if I were in that situation or had family, and I would not want to put them in that situation. My mother is, she's a nurse practitioner who deals with mental health and addiction. She's been doing that she was the first one in BC. And she said that she would never ever send any of her patients there if recommended. She said they'd rather have them live on the street because it's safer there, because you don't have as much access to open drugs. You can just walk in and commit a crime. And if you don't have money, it's easy enough to go break into a house, break into a car, get your money for what you need, because that's all you care about. Addiction lives in the same frontal cortex of your brain as breathing, eating, and sleeping. So when that becomes a necessity, you will do what you got to do to get drugs or your money. So I'm speaking from firsthand view. I've had addiction in my life and mental health, PTSD. The last thing you want is a bunch of noise on the busiest corner of North Vancouver. And when you're in a vulnerable state, sometimes you want to make your life better, but when you're in there, there's no chance at all. So thank you for giving me the time to speak. I appreciate it, Mike.
Thank you very much for your comments, Kevin Newman. The next speaker I have is virtual participant Steph Baker. Steph Baker over on the panel. There you go. Steph Baker, you are muted in the Zoom system. If you can unmute.
I can do that. Can you hear me now?
I can. Welcome. We can hear you clearly. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Appreciate the time to speak. I work in affordable housing sphere, and so I'm a strong supporter of affordable housing and housing for the vulnerable in our community, including those needing this form of supportive housing. I do have some questions, however, that I'd like to share more as food for thought as you're pondering your decision on next steps. Firstly, I'm wondering what other organizations were offered this land to provide affordable housing for those at the top of the OCP list and the housing strategy, and why those were not options for the land. I do recall having a conversation with several councillors a number of years ago about this being a location for affordable housing for families and singles. Nothing further seemed to have come to light on this until the sign went up on the property. A previous speaker articulated clearly that the OCP priorities are what they are, but I'm unclear how the process unfolded to determine that this land was not fit for those priorities. I was unable to be present for the past meetings and generally supported the idea because I do have a passion for housing, but I do have some safety concerns as I live on Haywood, kitty corner from the proposed development. The proposed operator has historically had some challenges in their ability to control incidents and the mitigation of excess drug use and overflow into the community. This is well documented, and the Travelodge is the most geographically obvious example. So I'm curious who is responsible for ensuring that the community surrounding the building is not affected negatively whatsoever. Is the RCMP the only gatekeeper? What happens when the situation becomes a hazard and a community security risk? How does it get shut down? How is the community to be protected if needed? What are the operators committing to? In my 7 years across the street, there have been no crime issues. However, just 2 weeks ago, a homeless couple were in the middle of the street in front of my house, openly using and strung out and unable to communicate with me. The police were dispatched to try to help. However, there are few housing options. I fully understand the safe housing need, but who will manage the loitering? Drug use in the adjacent park and backyards, drug sales on our streets, drug paraphernalia. We have a park across the street that allows for lots of hidden activity, and there doesn't seem to be a plan within this proposal for rehabilitation, just permission to use and hang around. Why would open drug use by residents be allowed? And additionally, why would guests be allowed to bring drugs into a family neighborhood? I don't understand the concept of why this would be considered. No amount of commentary to the contrary by the proponents or the builders will impede the historical realities. I agree with the doctor who spoke earlier that we will not be servicing only locals, but rather importing others in need without adequate expanded support services. And that is key. There are no support services. It is simply a place for people to use. The city of North Van is across the street from the proposed development. So will the city become responsible for the handling of overflow in the adjacent neighborhoods on the district side? My preference for this location would be to see mixed-use housing where there is not a predominance of one type of resident requiring significant support where there are insufficient resources. Families and low-income families and individuals would have been ideal. 65 units in this location is significant on its own, but 65 units as a safe injection site is bordering on irresponsible. Why are we not implementing gentle integration? Why are we not starting with smaller pocket size options? I urge council to consider this project not singularly based on need, but based on what they think the neighborhood might look like in 5 years. Thanks very much for your time.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments, Steph Baker. Would anybody else like to address a hearing for a first, second, or third time? I've got hand in the back, hand in the corner, and hand up here, and then we'll keep going after that. So yes, we'll start with you in the back. There we go. You've spoken before. You've spoken before 3 times. Yeah, so nope, I'm good. We've already said that in order to be able to speak more than 2 times, you have to get permission. You've got permission for a third. You will not have permission for a fourth. Yeah. Nope, I'm not going to allow it. I'm going to follow our rules and I'm not going to allow it. Next speaker in the corner, please. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing. If you could start with your name, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. It's James Holtrop.
Thank you. And James, I think you've been up here a couple times already, so this is your 3rd time speaking. Thank you.
Thanks very much for having me again.
Welcome.
Thank you. I did a fairly long talk last time. I just thought I'd not repeat anything I said before, but I just wanted to bring to light something that was mentioned to me after the last meeting, and I think everyone in the room should know about, and that is Bill 44. I'm not sure how many people in the room know about this. I'm sure all of you do. But as of June 2024, the provincial government will be able to bring all zoning up to the OCP, which means these meetings are almost a moot point. If the province wants to build it, they will build it. And it will be illegal to have a public hearing as outlined here in this section. I just snipped the piece. It may not be completely legally whatever, but this is what's happening. So what I would urge council when it comes time to vote for this zoning bylaw, perhaps knowing that this may go sideways down the road, that you could sleep with a clear conscience if you vote no, and the province and BC Housing do this anyway. You at least have had your voice saying that you said no. Should there be all the backlash and problems that could happen?
Sorry, carry on.
It's okay. I'd just like to give you guys the opportunity to just say no to this and then let the province do it when they want to with BC Housing and Luma. And then it's not your problem down the road when it comes to re-election that everyone's mad at you for saying yes. Pretty much all I wanted to say. But I just think it's important that people understand that the province has set it, well, the federal government has set aside this bill that now is allowing everyone to just, the province to just build what they want based on the OCP. And in the OCP, this land is already slated for what they're asking for. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for speaking. And so again, just if people have spoken 3 times and you want to contribute additional comments, you have to do it electronically and you have to do it before the time that the public hearing comes to a close. But I will not be allowing 4th-time speakers in accordance with the policy. And so the next speaker I have is right up here in the 2nd row, please. Welcome. If you could start with your name for the record, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Hi, it's Suzette Halter, and it's my 2nd time speaking.
Thank you so much.
Didn't plan on speaking, but I have an added concern from last time. First, I would like to say I'm aware of Bill 44, and I think everybody should look it up and be informed about that. Oops, sorry. I'm concerned about the importing of people outside of North Vancouver to this facility and perhaps other ones that get built out here. As I mentioned before, I lived across from a building like this, and police were always there, ambulances were always there. There's constantly people being brought to the hospital. And of course, because they're depressed and they have issues. As I mentioned before, I'm a caregiver for a 93-year-old. I just spent 5 days at the hospital with my client. There were beds in the emergency area where people spent days in the hallway, at least a dozen people at a time, sleeping in the hallway because there were no beds for them within the hospital. My client was there for 5 days waiting for a simple shot in her back to relieve her pain so that she could move. We don't have the facilities to bring in more people that need to go into emergency constantly. We can't take care of ourselves right now. We can't have more people coming in, and not just this, but just the growth of North Van in general. If people are waiting in hallways and waiting for 5 days for something simple like that, we just don't have the capacity for more. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Suzette. I have virtual participant Rab, and then I'm going to go to the gentleman in row 6 on the aisle there next. I think you had your hand up. Is that correct? Yeah, you'll be second speaker. So, and then I see another hand over here. Is that, there you go. There you go, in the black hat. Great. Okay, so virtual participant Rab, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you. Hello, I am a 20-year-old student who was raised in this neighborhood, and I stand today as a concerned member of this neighborhood, not in opposition to supportive housing, but to the location. While I support initiatives aiming to provide assistance to those in need, it's extremely crucial to consider its impact on our community. Not only is this a family-friendly neighborhood, it's a place where children of our society grow and play, considering there is also a daycare right across where the supportive housing will be built. To add, there's lots of beautiful trails taking place around this neighborhood, including one that goes under a bridge, which is a shared space where members of the community stroll with their dogs and children. I actually personally have an experience I'd like to share where I was recently walking back from Park and Tilford Plaza to my home, which is right by where the supportive housing is being considered. I encountered a distressing situation where I was being followed and yelled at by someone visibly homeless and under drug use. I was quite literally fearing for my life and shaking, and I had to run back to my house. This incident has left me fearful about the potential consequences of establishing supportive housing in our neighborhood and is an encounter that serves as a reminder of the risks and dangers and should be a necessity for careful consideration before moving forward with such a significant decision. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Rab.
Thank you.
Then I've got 6 aisle right here. If you want to come up, and then it'll go to black hat third right there. My right, not left. I got it. Welcome, and if you could start with your name for the record. You've been a speaker before?
This is my second time.
Second time. Thank you very much.
My name is Ali Reza Ahmadi.
Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity again. I'm sure all speakers, regardless of the opposed or agree or disagree, they respect and passionate for the people, for low income, for homelessness, and most of they believe they need support. They have home or some. But the problem is with this plan. The presentation here, I got it in few information session, is very nice, colorful. They showed very nice thing to build this site or something like that, but doesn't take any picture, anything about aftermath, when this building is built and residents come there. What's going over there? There is no picture of after that. What's around that one? What's going on? How the people is around that one and the area look like. The building is very nice, but after that doesn't show anything. And the problem is after that, their behavior, the problem they making. The other thing is the people talking about supporting this plan. I think most of them not living in this neighborhood, living in North Vancouver. They didn't mention their address. They say just in North Vancouver, but not in this neighborhood because they are not suffering aftermath consequences of the people coming here and live here, and they are not suffering that one. You want to support or help 60 or 65 people, they have some problem. But you want to make in this safe area, we have it healthy, safe, and make problem for that people, nervousness and all things, make a lot of illness for the people. The people supporting they are talking, they are individual, talking about their support. But most of us are opposed to this plan, representing hundreds of people. They are not here, but we gave permission on behalf of them, talk to them. instead of few people that supporting, and they are not living in this neighborhood, and the thousands of people living this neighborhood, they are considering many people mentioned before all the speaker. I don't want to mention those ones. I remember in information session in Holiday Inn, I was talking to you, Mr. Mayor, and you told the government asked us introduce few sites for supporting housing. And you told you introduced 5 different sites, but the housing just choose this place. Why? Why they are not going for other 4? This place is not good place for this one. With all reason, the speaker talking about the school, the kids, the playground, kids playground, and all of them. Why this place? Why they are not going for those other 4 places? You told me, I didn't get the address, but you mentioned you introduced 5 land for them. The people with mental illness and drug, they don't want to do anything wrong. But when they are in need or by one trigger, the mental illness, suddenly doing something they don't want it, but doing something wrong and make problem. This is the problem. And who is responsible for it? Inside the building, you take care of it, but outside, who taking care of it? Everything gonna happen outside for all living area. And just I would like to mention that if really you didn't make your decision in advance, or you don't want to make your decision by politics, please do more research, study, see the fact of reality of this building. Because every day, 3-4 times I'm passing Bivec, Travelodge, I see what's going on, morning, evening, in afternoon.
If you can
Please,
draw to a close, please, Mr.
yes, last. And please do more research, and I urge you, take time and go for few hours just standing near that building and see what's going on, and then make right decision for our neighborhood.
Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, and so we normally take a break at about 9 o'clock. So I do have a speaker identified here. So after that speaker, we're going to take a short break. So council, if you have any clarifying questions to send over, we'll get to them right after the break. Welcome. If you want to start your comments with your name, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Hey, yeah, my name is Scott Turner. Not huge on public speaking, but I figured, you know, if one more vote no is what stops this thing from happening, then I'd get up here and kind of share, you know, what I know to be what's going to happen from this proposed building. I've grown up in, unlike a lot of the people who have spoken here, I grew up in East Vancouver in some rough neighborhoods. And my brother and father were both drug addicts. Lots of friends as drug addicts. And like, you know, I broke the cycle of my family. I started a business. I worked my butt off, you know, to save up enough money. And you know, I feel so fortunate that, you know, I have a crippling mortgage on the place that I just got in North Vancouver. But my 10-year-old son is in private school, and I have a house in North Vancouver where it's safe, and he's not gonna experience all that. But, you know, a month into living here, 2 months into living here, I found out there's gonna be an SRO built blocks away from my place. Like, I'll tell you what's gonna happen. You're gonna have drug addicts down in Park and Tilford, panhandling, robbing people. You're gonna have drug addicts under the bridge. It's not gonna be safe for people to walk there. They're going to migrate up Keith Road to Arborland, Mountain Highway. They're gonna be in and out of people's yards, stealing what they can. You know, worst case scenario, people are getting robbed. You know, women are getting harassed. There's gonna be drug paraphernalia in the parks, in the trails. Like, it's just, this is not the right place. These people need to be closer to hospitals, closer to first responders, like police, just, I mean, you know, beg you guys to please do not push this project ahead in this neighborhood. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Scott. Okay, so we're gonna take about a 5-minute break. I would encourage everybody to have a stretch, and we have washrooms across the hall, and we'll see you back here in about 5 minutes time, where we'll address, we have had a couple of questions come in from council, and we'll address those when we return from a leg stretch. All right. Call the hearing back to order. If people could please take their seats. All right, so as I said at the front end of the meeting, there are opportunities for council to ask clarifying questions as the hearing goes on. Somebody raises a question, council identifies it as something needing additional information. These questions have been going out throughout the whole hearing, and they're quite literally probably about 60 questions. They're all recorded in the agenda book that is both available online and over at the door. But we've been checking in with council from time to time, and we're at another one of those points now. Ms. Adva, I believe you've had a couple of questions come in, so if you can read out the question and give your response into the record, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tina Atfa. I'm the manager of community planning. A couple questions that we've seen come from council tonight, and I'll ask Tamsin Guppy, the development planner, to answer them. The first question is, are there any supportive housing models in the Lower Mainland or BC where substances are prohibited, or in Canada?
Thank you, Tina. And yes, there are a variety of housing type of nonprofits that offer so-called dry facilities. And for residents who are interested, or for people who are homeless too, who are interested in moving straight to a facility for detox, stabilization, or treatment, they would be directed to those agencies, agencies like Turning Point, Lookout Housing and Health Society, and Rain City. Remember, the East Keith site was, or is proposed to be, a project that is for people who may or may not have, want to use drugs, and that some people who are homeless have a variety of issues. Often you don't end up homeless just due to one single cause. And so you need those variety of support services. And it was for that reason BC Housing was looking to have a kind of housing first approach as opposed to an abstinence-based model. And I believe that is a second question.
Thank you very much, Tamsin. Well, Your Worship, I'll read the second question out. Why did BC Housing choose this location out of the 5 location options given to them by the District of North Vancouver?
Yeah, so just a point of clarification, the district looked at a variety of housing sites, some of which are less appropriate for this type of housing. Some of them are further away. Some of them are right next to schools and would be more appropriate for family-oriented housing. So this was a site that was a little bit further from schools, but still on transit, still in the community, still close to services, right-sized for this type of project, and designated for an apartment project in the official community plan. So it met the district's criteria and BC Housing's criteria. And I believe another question has just come in.
Yes, we have two more questions, Your Worship. The next question is, can we change the mix of housing types? Rather than 65 single rooms, could we have 30 double with some family and then the remainder bachelors?
Mr. Milburn?
Your worship, I believe the question speaks to the heart of the proposal before council. So the question is, can council change the bylaws before council? Council has the authority to do that. However, I would recommend that before changing any of the parameters of the proposal, that we would consult with our partners to determine whether or not that would be an appropriately fundable and developable project. In this case, BC Housing has indicated that the proposal before council is what would be funded, and other proposals may not be funded.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Atfa?
Thank you. The next question, if council wanted to rezone the land, but then not allow substances, what would the process be? Would that be part of the negotiation with the operator?
Mr. Milburn?
A very similar response, Your Worship. This is the proposal before council is for a facility that tenants could be use substances, but would receive care and supports in response to that. It is not predominantly, though, a detox treatment or stabilization facility. There are other facilities where prospective residents, if they needed those kinds of services, would be directed to. This is a residential living facility for folks that are homeless or at risk of homelessness. So again, if council wishes to change the parameters of this proposal, I would recommend that we return negotiations with our partners to determine whether or not such a facility could be funded and developed at this location.
So I just want to clarify that. So I believe this was asked and answered of the applicant at the time. That was one of those original questions, which is if council wanted to rezone the land but then not allow subsistence, would that be the process? And the very clear response from BC Housing at the time was no, the project would not proceed. That's my recollection of their answer the last time this question was asked.
Yeah, I think that was the point I was trying to make, is that the proposal before council is what is tied to this project. And to change those parameters, either in terms of the makeup of the occupants, how the facility would run, would be going back to our partner. And so far, they've said that's not what they're developing. They're developing the proposal that's before council. That's the question that's before council, is whether or not this is the appropriate use at this site.
Thank you. Ms. Atpa, I believe you have another question that's come in.
Yes, one more question. Are we not just rezoning the land and then the partner will be chosen later? I can answer that. Yes, the land is being proposed to be rezoned at this time. The partners have been identified in the likes of BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health. Both have offered monies for construction and operating as well. BC Housing went through a competitive bid process for the housing operator and selected Luma Native Housing Society.
Thank you very much. Okay, and that's all of the questions from council at this time. Okay. All right, returning back to the room and to the virtual speakers, I do believe I have a virtual attendee called Sean. Maybe we can move Sean over as a panelist. Would anybody else in the room like to speak a first, second, or third time? Okay, so we're going to go to Sean.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome. I can hear you clearly. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Alrighty, so my name is Sean and I live in North Vancouver. I've been living here for a while now. I have a younger brother. He's 4 years old and he goes to Park Place Daycare, which is pretty much across the street from where this building's going to be built. And I do understand the fact that like daycare kids do not walk home, but my mom drives there, parks the car like a little far away, walks to the daycare, grabs my brother, walks back to her car, and usually it happens around 6 p.m., which this time of year it can get quite dark. And I don't know if it was just, I don't know if you guys don't live in the neighborhood probably, but just imagine if this was your child and your spouse doing that, would you feel comfortable with that? Probably not, because like my brother is 4 years old. He doesn't know anything about any drugs or anything, but when their daycare teacher takes them on walks in the trails, one day he came home and he was talking to me about he saw a needle, and he was asking me why would someone do blood work in the middle of the woods. And they're children, they like to play with pointing things. And that's just like, as a person who has a younger brother, and I'm sure like that's a neighborhood where like a bunch of families live, I don't think anyone would be okay with this kind of movement, and I'm just opposed to it. That's all I had to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your comments, Sean. Okay, would anybody else like to address the hearing a first, second, or third time? Yes. Second time for Stefan. Welcome, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Hi, I wasn't aware that it would have people who use drugs in it. And I don't think it's necessarily a problem. And what is the ratio of people who will be using, who are expected to be suffering from these issues in the housing complex? Because we had the person before, did he leave? I think he did, who said he was worried about the amount of people in there who would be using drugs and that they could influence each other to create a negative environment. So I'm wondering about that. And I know this is sort of like not substantial. I have not word. Anyways, that location, it's probably one of the least nice locations in North Van, probably, which is why it's remained undeveloped. It has the highway, it has the on-ramp. It's one of my least favorite places to walk past. So it's not a very pleasant place to be. So I'm not sure how happy people would be there. And I still think the project is could help a lot of people. And I know a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but at my job, I had somebody who was my boss who suffered from drug use, who recovered. And I have a hard time imagining he could have done that without the support of housing. So I know it's possible to recover and use these locations for good. That's all I'm saying. So I don't know when the question of how the housing is going to be used proportionally could be addressed, but it'd be interesting to hear that from the council.
Thank you very much. It is actually already in the record. They presented it at the first or second night, saying that a third of the clients they have that are in this segment have drug use issues, about a third. Okay, thank you very much. The next speaker I have is Scott Pittman, speaking a second time.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I'll keep my points brief here. I know there was some earlier points made about the site not being close to schools, the proximity of schools to this site should be noted. There are schools within, a kilometre and walking distance of this site. That should be noted. So if we were to take a more macro view, that should be considered. If BC Housing is indeed one of the key funders, I think what we're collectively hearing, and as councillors, strong opposition to the current proposal. I think it is about going back to the drawing board with BC Housing considering a more favourable proposal that is site appropriate. Again, I think I speak for both myself and others that we're hearing around the table that there is favour around supportive housing in the right location. That is not the right location for the current proposal. We as a collective, you as council members have been key contributors to the sense of community that's been generated and as a key asset of North Vancouver and Lynn Valley. And this is a key risk to taking away that key asset and eroding its value for all of us involved. So just a couple of additional points there. Schools are close, and ultimately BC Housing, if they can come back to the table for a different proposal, let's consider that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Scott Pittman. I have a virtual participant with the name VH. We'll move you over as a panelist, but I'm going to need a name for the record. VH, can you hear me?
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm going to need a name for the record, please.
My name is Vahid, V-A-H-I-D.
Vahid, have you spoken before?
No, it's my first time actually.
Okay. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
First of all, I want to thank you to give me this opportunity to talk before you. So this is not just a matter of the policy, it's a matter of the compassion, humanity, and our collective responsibility to address one of the most pressing challenges facing our community. As we all know, so the drug addiction is the sort of the issue, but as a pharmacist who witnesses the daily struggles of the people that dealing with the drug addiction, I would like to emphasize that the critical importance of finding effective solution to address the challenges associated with the drug addiction, considering both the well-being of the those facing addiction and the safety of the broader community. In my day-to-day work as a pharmacist, I am on the front lines, interacting with the individuals who lives are deeply impacted by addiction. The reality is that the drug addiction is not confined to any specific neighborhood or demographic. It's a pervasive issues that requires a comprehensive and compassionate responses. I've seen firsthand how individuals in the throes of the addiction can pose a danger, not only to themselves, but also to the others. The situation becomes more complex when it spills over into our communities, affecting the safety and well-being of the residents, schools, and public spaces. I believe East Hastings in Vancouver served as a stark example of the challenges that can arise when addiction in the left is left unaddressed, with visible impact on the safety and quality of life for both residents and those battling addiction. It's disheartening to witness how East Hastings has, in some ways, become a ghost street due to the challenges posed by individuals walking the street in the grip of the addiction. This not only affects the livability of the area, but also highlights the urgent need for effective intervention strategies. So the experiences I encountered in my professional life underscore the importance of the providing support system that address the root causes of addiction while preventing harm to individuals and the community at large. So I believe the lessons from East Hastings should serve as a reminder of the real and immediate impact that addiction can have on communities. So I believe this for sure, this new housing would affect our neighborhood. And I believe we can find the better place for this housing than like the place that now it's planned to be built in the North Vancouver. It's been 2 years, 3 years that we moved to here, but now it's scary for all the residents in the North Vancouver, especially in the Keith Street that on Keith Road, that people will encounter lots of trouble, lots of and many people are now considering to sell their places and move to the other places because of this kind of housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Vahid. I have a second-time speaker, Lucas Christensen, joining us virtually. We can move Lucas over to the panel. That would be great. Would anybody else here in the room like to speak? Yeah, next I'll come to Sean Rivers for a second time speaking. Just want to clear, is Lucas over? Okay, Lucas Christensen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good evening.
Welcome. You have an additional 5 minutes of speaking time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak again. This is the second council meeting we've attended virtually. And just from, partaking in this meeting, it's raising questions for myself, particularly about the safety within the facility in terms of drug use. If people will be smoking drugs inside of the facility, would that not cause a threat with, having a possibility of having a fire or something like that? So would that then, if you're not allowed to smoke or have an open flame within the building, would that not force people out onto the street to use drugs? That's kind of the question that I was concerned about. And, I had already mentioned earlier that my family and I are concerned about the safety related to this facility. So anyhow, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I, again, will keep it short, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Lucas Christensen. Next speaker I have is Sean Rivers here in the chamber. Is there any other speakers after Sean at this point? Okay. Welcome. You have an additional 5 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you. I just want to go back to a couple of points that were made earlier with the council questions that were presented by the speaker over here. I'm sort of curious and dumbfounded about the concept that this site was chosen because it's away from schools. It's being built on a previous school land, and there's 3 different schools that I can think of within a kilometer of this actual location. All 3 of these schools are accessed through a trail network and quiet neighborhood streets, and are deemed safe conceptual travel zones for kids, family bicycles away from busy streets and such, and they all feed right from this. So the concept of a community housing and the ultimate user group of this supportive housing concept really seems out of place and askew to not be a family-driven concept. We have the infrastructure of everything that a family needs. We have daycares directly across the street. We have parks and trail networks for people to travel, even if they are unable to, say, have a motor vehicle for themselves. You have a pharmacy and a grocery store walking distance that you could pretty much see from any window of that location. And yet you're choosing a you're choosing a different user group to use this that would not benefit from this location at all. This is really deemed to be a family location. Further, just curious, so BC Housing has basically just presented the concept that no, we are in no compromise position. This is our decision, period, end of story. That's great. It's a little unfortunate. Doesn't seem very democratic. Whatever, I don't understand the ins and outs of it. I just left a bad taste in my mouth to hear it. Once again, I appreciate the time to be able to come up and speak. I'll close. Single occupancy seems like an ultimate waste of this situation. Maybe it just gets shoehorned in because of the footprint of a building that you could build, but it's not good for the ultimate use of that neighborhood. The neighborhood is really functionally a family neighborhood. People without the means to have a vehicle, whatnot, all the things that they need are right close by and can be the ultimate end user group needs to be reconsidered if this type of building is going to be put there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Sean Rivers. Would anybody else virtually or here in person or through the phone system like to add their comments to the hearing a first, second, or third time? Please. Sean and Linda virtual as well. Welcome, and if you could start with your name for the record.
Hi, good evening. My name is Andrew Baker. I live approximately 50 meters from the proposed site. I spoke once before. I don't know, second night. Either way, I just want to get up here and state that I am very against this location for this building. The location could be much better used for families and other things, but like stated, that's not the question tonight. The question is the proposed usage that you've put in front of us. And I think it's been very clear by the community that we're not for this. That's about all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next speaker I have is virtual speakers. Title is John and Linda. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Clearly, welcome. Is this your first time speaking?
This is my first time. Yeah, my name is John Wong.
Welcome, John. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time to speak on this issue. It was brought to my attention some time ago, but I never had the opportunity to really speak on this issue until today with regards to schedule. But I just wanted to notion that I am opposing this project just because of the fact that I am a father of three. Our kids go to the local Montessori, which is just about a block away from this proposed site. As well as we also use Bridgman Park, Salient Park, as well as the trails, as well as some of the community centers nearby as well too. So it's definitely an area that is populated by a lot of younger kids and younger families. And to see in the past 4 or 5 years what it's become and what it could potentially come into, it's a little scary. Our kids love playing at Bridgman Park and they love using the areas around it. During lunchtime, our kids will go there and play in the park with their classmates as well too during the course of recess and lunch. So it makes a big difference, to be able to be in a safe place where they can be able to enjoy their time in that park without having to worry about any safety issues and so forth. I'm not opposed to supportive housing or complex care. Just like many other individuals previously in this hearing, they have noted that this building could be used for a different purpose, and I would love to see that happen. Complex care, and that may not be the ideal situation in this location, but it definitely is needed, but maybe not for this location. There was something in the news that I did also hear where there was an injunction to stop a law being passed where they were going to ban public use of drugs in recreational areas, sports parks, and so forth. But there was an injunction that caused it to pause and would be reviewed again on March 31st, I believe, to see if that would occur or not. With that happening, if there is a law that does ban drugs and so forth in these local parks and sports industries, it could make a difference. But I also feel that it also could cause some of these individuals to use drugs even more. So nevertheless, it's something that's in the government and there's something that they're working on. But in regards to my view, I feel that this proposed location could be used for a better use. And again, I do oppose this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, John Wong. As we start to get closer to exhausting the speakers list, I have to do something that looks a little archaic, but I have to exhaust the speakers list by repeating this thing. So would anybody else like to speak a first, second, or third time? Okay, so that's the first time. A second time, would anybody else like to address the hearing a first, second, or third time? Okay. And for a third and final time, would anybody like to address this hearing for a first, second, or third time speaking?
I have a motion, Mayor Little.
Okay, hearing none, I believe we've exhausted the speakers list at this point, Mrs. Clark. So I will look to council. I believe Councillor Murray, you have a motion.
I think I ask council to close this public hearing and return this bylaw to a regular meeting of council.
Thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded. I'm prepared to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carries. So just before I just do a closeout sort of speech here, I just want to confirm with the clerk. So we've now returned this item back to a second and third meeting. When is that likely to end up on our agenda?
Thank you, through your worship. This is targeted for February 5th regular council. However, depending, it may be delayed due to operations, but we are targeting February 5th.
So we always try to give council a couple of weeks to sort of deliberate on what they've heard throughout the public hearing. And so we are targeting February 5th as the date, but you'll have to monitor the agendas on the Wednesday previous. We'll make public the agenda for the Monday. And that's when we actually will have confirmation. But that's our intent, is to bring it back for the February 5th, and council will have their opportunity to make their arguments at second and third reading at that point. This hearing is now closed. And so what that means is the council can't receive further submissions from the public. If the public have questions still in their mind, they are welcome to contact our staff directly. They're not welcome to contact the council directly. The information we received is the information we have to make the decision on at this point. And so at this point, I'm going to thank everybody for participating. Thank you to the staff for being diligent in preparing responses. Thank you to members of the public for sharing your points of view with us. And thank you, council, for your consideration of these matters. Everybody have a fantastic night. Good night.